Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever looked at a building and wondered how experts figure out what it's really worth? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain and decoding physical deterioration. And you're about to find out it's way more interesting than just looking at a calendar. So let's just kick things off with a little brain teaser. How is it possible that a 20-year-old building could actually be younger than a brand new looking 10-year-old one? I know, it sounds like a riddle, right? But stick with me, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly how that works. All right, to solve that puzzle, we first have to get our heads around the fundamental way that appraisers look at a building. It all comes down to how they measure the simple, inevitable effects of wear and tear. And the official term for that is physical deterioration. Really, just think of it as a way to measure how much of a building's total value has been used up. From being out in the rain and sun, from people living and working inside it, or, just from time itself doing its thing. Now, it's good to know that this is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Appraisers look at other things too, but physical deterioration is usually the most obvious one, the one you can actually see and touch. And that's what we're going to focus on today. And I mean, we've all seen the signs, right? We're talking about stuff like cracked walls, a roof that's seen better days, peeling paint, or even bigger headaches like termites and leaky pipes. Every single one of those things represents a little bit of value that's been lost. Okay, and here is a super important rule to lock in. This whole idea of depreciation, it only applies to the building itself, what appraisers call the improvement. The land underneath it doesn't get depreciated. Nope, its value is a completely separate thing. So this is where it gets really interesting. This next part is the secret decoder ring to how appraisers think about age. And trust me, it's probably not what you're expecting. See, for an appraiser, there are two kinds of age. You've got chronological age, which is easy. That's just the number on the calendar. But then you have effective age, and that's the one that really matters. It's the age the building seems to be, all based on its condition and how well it's been kept up. And boom, this is the answer to our riddle from the start. A 20-year-old house that's been loved, cared for, and updated could easily have an effective age of just 12. But a 10-year-old building that's been totally neglected, its effective age could be way higher, maybe 18 or even more. Condition is king. And it's the same kind of thinking with a building's lifespan. Physical life is how long the walls will literally stand up, but the economic life is how long it's actually useful and valuable in the market. It's kind of like an old car. It might still run, but if it's outdated and costs a fortune to fix, its economic life is pretty much over. Appraisers also put problems into two main buckets, curable and incurable. Curable stuff is what makes financial sense to fix, repainting a room or fixing a drip. The value you add is more than the cost to fix it. Incurable problems, like a crumbling foundation, well, fixing it would cost way more than the value you'd get back. So we've got all these cool concepts, right? Effective age, economic life, but how do appraisers turn that into an actual dollar amount? Well, they use a method that is surprisingly simple. It's called the age-life method, and it's the industry standard for a reason. It's practical, it makes sense, and it's easy to explain. The whole idea behind it is that a building loses its value at a nice, steady pace over its whole economic life. And really, the entire logic is baked into this one simple formula. You just take the building's effective age, how old it appears to be, and divide it by its total economic life, how long it's expected to be useful. That little calculation tells you exactly what percentage of its value has been used up. Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this all works in practice. We're going to run the numbers on a quick example to see exactly how these pieces come together. The whole thing follows these 6 logical steps. It's not as scary as it looks, I promise. We basically figure out what it would cost to build today, determine its age and lifespan, do that little bit of math, and out pops the final value. Okay, step 1. Let's imagine it would cost 5 million pesos to build this exact structure today. That's our starting line, the replacement cost new, or RCN for short. Step 2. The appraiser takes a good look around and decides that, based on its condition, it's basically like a typical 10-year-old building. So our effective age is 10 years. Step 3. Based on this type of building, the standard total useful lifespan, its economic life, is about 50 years. That's how long we expect it to be valuable. And now for step 4, we just apply our ratio. We take that 10-year effective age and divide it by the 50-year total economic life. What do we get? 0.20, or 20%. Simple as that. This building has used up 20% of its economic value. Moving on to step 5, we figure out how much value has been lost. We take our 5 million peso replacement cost and multiply it by that 20% we just found. That gives us 1 million pesos. That's the total depreciation. And for the grand finale, step 6, we take the original 5 million replacement cost and subtract the 1 million in depreciation. And there it is. The building's current depreciated value is 4 million pesos. See? Not so bad. Now, that whole process seems pretty straightforward, right? But believe me, there are a few common traps that people can easily fall into if they aren't paying close attention. These are pretty much the biggest ones. The number 1 mistake? Mixing up calendar age with effective age. Another biggie is using the physical lifespan instead of the economic one. That'll throw all your numbers off. But most of all, you gotta remember that this formula is just a tool. It's not a replacement for an appraiser's actual experience and judgment. So the next time you're walking down the street, look around with new eyes. That beautiful old building that's been perfectly kept up, it might be a lot younger than you think. And that newer place that's looking a bit rough, well, it might be much, much older. Now that you know the secret, what's the true age of the buildings around you?